Hello everyone, welcome to the Jewish Week Online. I'm your host, Aaron Herman. What happens if you have the opportunity to speak at your commencement, but it falls out on Shabbos? With the opportunity to speak with Don Greenberg, a recent graduate of Binghamton University, who came up with an innovative way, with the help of administrators, to still keep Shabbos and address his peers. Let's take a closer look. How did the Binghamton University staff react to your situation?
The school was incredibly supportive. They basically sprung into action. They contacted the sound people to see if we could get a non-dynamic mic. They wanted to see whether or not they could fit the restriction of having no lights or circuits engaging as a result of my speaking. And it turned out that that second part was there's just no real way to manage the sounds for a full graduation without using a soundboard that has circuits that react to a person speaking. I don't think it's possible. So we went with the next best thing, which was a video recording that would be presented day of. And honestly, I almost prefer that because if I felt like it was a little bit more special. When I talked to Rabbi Harksick about it, he said, if you go through with this and they're able to accommodate you and get a microphone that's permissible and set everything up so that it works, you really need to spend time talking about how, basically fleshing out what happened and how thankful you are to the school for making it happen and everything like that. And my thought was, well, if it all seems very natural and the audience can't really notice it different, it's just not going to seem like it was such a tremendous accommodation or effort. Whereas if it's a video and it's clear that the campus is really good, like the university really went out of their way to accommodate, and I sort of explain that all the way, it could be a lot more meaningful to the audience, and they can really see, wow, this is a sort of different scenario. This isn't like your sort of run-of-the-mill university organizing a commencement speech and fitting some, religious restriction. It was a little bit, I guess, took it a level higher than that, and it ended up working out fine. It ended up being pretty tasteful. I thought it would be super awkward to be standing at the podium while the video played behind me, but it was all very natural. Apparently a couple people that didn't know what was happening just thought that I was actually speaking. My head was up on the screens behind me, and they replicated the sort of shot really well. And apparently until like a minute or so in where I explained that I was videoed, that I was pre-recorded, people just thought that I was actually speaking. They just weren't looking at small Don Greenberg at the podium. They were only looking up at the screens. So they did a real bang up job. And obviously I was incredibly appreciative. My family was very appreciative. There's been, tons of people have been contacting the university, to say, you did great. So it all seemed to work out pretty well.
And one of the amazing things about this whole process is that you really educated the community at large about what it means to be Jewish and being a Sabbath observer. How has that changed you, or how has that influenced your life now?
I think not only was it sort of like education with respect to the Sabbath itself, but education with respect to Jewish culture was something that I thought was very positive. And there was a sort of change in context, I think. Normally, I think people in the school think of accommodating religions as just this thing that we have to do. I don't think that many of my friends who are not Jewish see Judaism as a culture per se, but kind of just see it as this sort of structure, and don't, I guess, really see the vibrance and how it actually plays out on a day-to-day basis. So maybe my friends know that we get off for Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. They just know that's something that happens at Binghamton, but they don't see us standing in shul, and they don't see us, they don't see all this sort of emotional underpinnings of Yom Kippur or anything like that. And I think that's I guess, context change, where I could present Judaism as a way of life. I thought that was kind of eye-opening to people. And it also changed my perspective on the way that Judaism can be presented. Because I think that maybe on a campus like Binghamton, where Judaism is so present, people kind of shy away from the idea of presenting it as a culturally distinctive body, and rather than sort of just a lifestyle, just sort of a difference of lifestyle, I guess, or a difference of day-to-day practice. So presenting it as like this cultural and, like, I guess, deeply, emotional in a way, but it's hard to find a word, but it's something that's so deeply a part of who I am culturally, was a very important change of context for me. And I think for, I guess, the people who are observing it, because it might have been easy for me to just say, like, whatever, I won't do it, because this is just a part, like a structural piece of my life, and Judaism created X restriction, and that's the end of it. But the fact that it was sort of brought to the forefront, the importance of Shabbat and how it fits culturally and how it fits with my sort of secular education, I guess, brought out that, I guess, the emotional part of it.
And what do your parents think?
My parents are happy. They're my biggest.
Are they excelling?
I think that might be an understatement. They are my biggest advocates, specifically on Facebook, which is its own I guess, foundational struggle. I guess I kind of come from a background of working with Shabbat, and specifically being Jewish. My great-grandfather used to be a rabbi in Oakland, and at a time when it wasn't so common to be Jewish or easy to be Jewish in Oakland. And like, my grandfather used to talk about like how difficult it was to be sort of like teased or questioned about wearing tzitzit during gym class, and having to keep Shabbat. And then later, when he and his brother were running a business in New York, so, clients contacting them and wanting to meet on Shabbat. And despite the fact that, the textiles business in New York isn't exactly the easiest one to have clout as two brothers doing business, kind of just, saying, no, we can't do that day, and hoping that they're willing to accommodate. That's something that I think my father has taken really seriously, the idea of like, this is what we are. And, you're still expected to make the most of life. That was something that my father, and I guess my grandfather, my great-grandfather, took pretty seriously. So the idea of kind of just, going with it and making something great happen, is something that my parents are serious about. And I think they were happy with how it ended up turning out, especially because I think it would have been a real shame, I guess, if I just had to say, like, sorry, can't do it. Just from like just from a capping off college perspective, just with everything, with the support of the Jewish community at Binghamton, it's just tremendous. And for, I guess, your run-of-the-mill Orthodox student to not be able to have that degree of participation, or to have a lesser degree of participation, just would have been a disappointing end. So the fact that it all worked out, I think my parents were pretty happy, aside from the fact that they will advocate on my behalf at any juncture.
And so the ADL actually did a supportive statement to Binghamton University. Usually it's, something else, but I think that's the first time ever I've heard that ADL's, doing something. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. The day that this all kind of broke, which also happened to be the day of my architecture final, it actually happened to be pretty much the hour of my architecture final. I was sort of going through all of the random notifications on my phone, and I see a LinkedIn request from the director of the ADL. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I accepted the request, and he messaged me and said, like, hey, most of the time we're doing the criticizing, and we really like to go out of our way to give hakarat tov to people, to, I guess, institutions that do a great job of accommodating and, I guess, really do the right thing. And I said, and they basically said, we want to send a message to Binghamton. Do you think that would be appropriate? And I said, sure. I'm sure they would find that really great and unique. And so they sent it along, and I just saw the sort of like letter that they sent to the president a couple days ago. And I don't know if that's kind of the kind of thing that like you keep in your back pocket as a university, like. But
so how has the president reacted? Obviously it's, the school worked with you to, accommodate, you during Shabbat. How have they reacted after the after the event?
President Stanger is such an outgoing and supportive character that it doesn't take a student having to do something like this for him to basically show more support than you'd expect out of 99% of university presidents. I mean, he's just a tremendous advocate for the students and for the university. And so when it came to this, I mean, he's excited, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's excited that, like, this is just another sort of great thing that we can add to the stack of accomplishments that Binghamton has racked up in the past decade or so. So, he's been really supportive, and I've worked with him over the last year or so. So he knows me, and I guess he knows that the idea of special attention isn't something that I'm particularly adverse to. And he's always been supportive, and the university in general has been really supportive of that. So, I'd almost say the response that a typical university president would give to something like this was certainly met or surpassed. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's kind of his way of doing things with almost everything.
So being a video journalist, I've had to do many different takes, especially with intros and conclusions. How many takes did it take you to actually do the run through? Because this is a moment. This is like a big moment,
Yeah. So we recorded on Wednesday of finals week. So I'm not the kind of person that studies many days in advance. I think I got like 3 hours of sleep on Saturday night, 4 on Sunday night, 3 on Monday, and then another 3 on Tuesday night. So by Wednesday time, I am basically just a walking zombie. And then at 10 a.m., I've got a pretty intense meeting. And then at 11 a.m., I have a much more intense meeting that was supposed to be pretty light. And so by the time I actually walk into recording, I am just like totally dead. I barely think straight at all. And you can actually see it if you look at the piece that the YNN local Binghamton network did right after recording. They just asked me a couple questions. I look like I'm this like bumbling idiot that can't collect his thoughts. And so when it came to actually reading the speech, the intro of which I actually wrote and finalized at 1 a.m. on Tuesday night. So I practiced it as much as I could, but every additional sort of run through is another 5 minutes of sleep that I'm sacrificing. So let's just have that cost benefit analysis in mind. The first time that I did it, I basically couldn't pick my face up from the page. I was just like trying to piece words together. And then the second time that I did it, and that wasn't so bad, except I basically never looked at the camera. The second time that I did it, at a certain point, I just completely lost the ability to read. And I think I read a full sentence backward, basically. The third time that I did it, it was going great. I was looking up at the camera, and I just like stopped. My brain just like turned off. And then the fourth time that I did it, someone in the room said like, all right, last time, or like something like that. It didn't have to be the last time, but there were so many people in the room that were just like interested because it was sort of like a fun and new thing that they were kind of there and they wanted to be there for the last take, but they had other things to do. So that time I just pulled together whatever chi I had left and channeled it all into like being direct with the camera and not screwing up. I think I still did screw up a couple times, but so like by the fourth take, it was okay. And it kind of had to be, so.
We can learn a lot from Don Greenberg's experience. It's critical to hold true to one's beliefs and values. And with the right partnerships and a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking, anything is truly possible. This is Aaron Herman, and thank you for watching.